So look at Anthony Ryder from South Lyon, Michigan, recently selected as the Lions 2020 Fan of the Year. He has a passion about sports broadcasting.
With the 112th selection in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions select Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver, USC. One pride, baby! Yeah! What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Detroit Lions video. So it turns out Jahmyr Gibbs is actually a pretty good football player. Who would have thought? A player taken with the 12th overall pick in the 2023 NFL Draft by a GM who has arguably been the best drafter in the last 3 off seasons. Turns out his favorite guy in the draft, a guy that he was ready to take at the 6th overall selection, was worthy of taking with the 12th overall pick. Jahmyr Gibbs has officially broken out. After a slow start to his NFL career and an underwhelming first month of play, Jahmyr Gibbs has finally gotten the opportunity to execute and has made the absolute most of his opportunities. Now, the Detroit Lions media, as well as many fans from around the NFL, were very critical of this pick at the time, right? Jahmyr Gibbs is a running back. You don't typically take running backs with the 12th overall pick, despite 5 picks earlier in the draft, Bijan Robinson going to the Atlanta Falcons. Now, the Detroit Lions were very heavily criticized for this pick. This was a pick that a lot of people said wasn't worthy of the 12th overall pick. This was a player a lot of people said was probably a second-round talent at best, but Brad Holmes had other ideas. Brad Holmes thought if he could get the explosive playmaker in the backfield, get the explosive playmaker out on the field for the Detroit Lions, he could really boost their offense and help them become one of the premier offenses in the NFL. And after the last couple of weeks, Brad Holmes' vision has officially come to life, as Jahmyr Gibbs over the last 2 weeks versus the Baltimore Ravens and the Las Vegas Raiders has finally gotten an opportunity to start for the Detroit Lions and be a focal point of the offense. And in that focal point role, Jahmyr Gibbs had 14 catches, 37 carries for 220 total rushing yards and 95 total receiving yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. Now, Jahmyr Gibbs has started 3 games for the Detroit Lions and played in 6 for them. In those 3 starts, Jahmyr Gibbs, his first start was against the Atlanta Falcons, where he saw 17 carries for 80 yards as well as 1 reception for 2 yards. He averaged 4.6 yards per touch and had 82 total yards in his first start as an NFL running back. He then took a backseat to David Montgomery on Thursday Night Football, as David Montgomery saw 32 carries on that Thursday night game, saw 3 touchdowns and a massive win over the division rival Green Bay Packers. Jahmyr Gibbs then got put on the injury report as he had a little bit of hamstring tightness that kept him out in both Carolina as well as Tampa Bay, but he returned as the focal point in Baltimore. The first-round pick got his second career start in Baltimore, and despite a very poor loss and a very poor overall showing by the Detroit Lions, Jahmyr Gibbs was pretty good, having 11 carries for 68 yards and a touchdown on the ground, while having 9 receptions for 58 yards through the air, finishing the game with 20 total touches, averaging 6.3 yards per touch, 126 yards total, and 1 touchdown. But his true breakout game and his true welcome to the NFL moment came on Monday Night Football, where on the first drive, Jahmyr Gibbs saw 8 touches. Jahmyr Gibbs finished the game with 26 total attempts for 152 yards, 1 touchdown, averaging 5.8 yards per carry, while also having 5 receptions for 37 yards. Jahmyr Gibbs would go on to finish the night with 31 total touches, averaging 6.1 yards per touch, his third highest in his career, while having 189 scrimmage yards and a touchdown to go with it. Jahmyr Gibbs is now coming off back-to-back games with 100-plus Jahmyr Gibbs is now coming off back-to-back games with 100-plus scrimmage yards and a touchdown, going into a bye week where he gets healthy, as well as the offensive line around him getting healthy, leading to hopefully much more success. Now, Jahmyr Gibbs over the last 2 weeks has been phenomenal. As I said, 37 carries, 14 catches, 220 rushing yards, 95 receiving yards, and 2 touchdowns. But on the season, Jahmyr Gibbs looks pretty good as well. As I said, started 3 games for the Detroit Lions, but played in 6. 104 total touches, 564 total yards, 2 touchdowns, 399 rushing, 156 receiving yards. That will put Jahmyr Gibbs on a 17-game pace to rush for 1,130 yards, receive for 467 yards, as well as having a total number of total scrimmage yards be 1,598 8. Jahmyr Gibbs has looked like one of the most explosive players in this draft, and he'd also be on pace for 5 touchdowns on the ground. But Jahmyr Gibbs looks to be one of the most explosive playmakers from the first round of the NFL draft, and arguably looks to be the best weapon overall drafted in the first round of the 2023 NFL draft. Taking a look at the last couple of games and really Jahmyr Gibbs' career overall, Jahmyr Gibbs has shown pretty much everything you would ever want to see in a franchise running back. Yeah, he's had a little bit of yes, he's had a few durability issues with his hamstrings and missing a couple of games early in his career, but he came back better than ever, showing the ability to have home run speed, very good quickness, elite burst, patience in the hole and patience in finding the gap, power in the run game, as well as contact balance and the ability to be an elite receiving back. Let's start off with the home run ability. Jahmyr Gibbs has shown the ability to be a home run hitter. He showed it in college with several massive plays, several huge touchdown runs for 50, 60, 70, even 80-yard touchdowns at the University of Alabama, and even going back to Georgia Tech showed the exact same thing. But in the NFL, it's a little bit harder, right? The defenders are a little bit quicker, the defenders are a little bit faster, and they're going to chase you down until you reach the end zone. And we haven't necessarily seen that 50-yard burst from Jahmyr Gibbs yet. We haven't quite seen the huge 50, 60-yard strike, one-play touchdown by Jahmyr Gibbs, but we have seen that home run speed in little spurts. Right, his touchdown run versus the Baltimore Ravens was a nice 20 to 30-yard gain that ended up with him being in the end zone and showing him burning several angles on his way into the end zone. And we saw it again on Monday night as Jahmyr Gibbs rushed for his second career touchdown on a 27-yard run where he started between the tackles, was able to make a player miss, bounce it outside, and beat the defender on the angle, beat him to the corner, and find his way into the end zone for his second career score. And that goes right along with his quickness, right? His quickness in the hole, his quickness to change direction, and his quickness to just turn on a dime and make defenders look silly is something that not a lot of running backs have at the level Jahmyr Gibbs has shown. Jahmyr Gibbs has shown the ability to escape in a phone booth. He's shown the ability to get out of very tight, very sticky situations. And if you're one-on-one with Jahmyr Gibbs, you're probably going to lose, right? That burst is another thing that has really been evident over the last 2 games. His ability to hit the hole and gain positive yardage is a huge asset for this Detroit Lions running game, right? Yes, every once in a while he'll get tackled in the backfield. Every once in a while the defender will break through. There'll be a blitz. There'll be an unblocked defender, something like that. But for the most part, Jahmyr Gibbs' burst allows him to not take negative yardage and not get tackled for negative gain very often and keep the Detroit Lions offense on schedule. His patience is something I think is very, very underrated in his game. A lot of people talk about the athlete. A lot of people talk about the speed. A lot of people talk about the quickness or the receiving game or what he can do on the field for you from an athletic standpoint, but I don't think everybody quite understands how patient a runner Jahmyr Gibbs actually is. He showed the ability, especially on Monday Night Football, to be patient for the right hole, be able to kind of see how the offensive line is opening things up for him, see how the defensive line is going to play it, and take advantage of different leverages, take advantage of different gaps in the rushing game, and really take advantage of the patience he has been granted. Jahmyr Gibbs, there were 3 or 4 different times in the Monday Night Football game where he was just going to sit behind the offensive line. He kind of let the play develop a little bit. And as soon as he saw that hole, he burst straight through for a 5, 6, 7 or bigger gain on the ground. He showed a little bit of power. Obviously, the ability to rush between the tackles is something that a lot of people doubted in Jahmyr Gibbs' game. But it turns out Jahmyr Gibbs is actually pretty strong. He's able to push that pile a little bit. He's able to kind of rush between the center and the guards. He's able to rush between the guards and the tackles. And that between the tackle running style isn't something that a lot of people thought Jahmyr Gibbs was going to be capable of, and they thought that's what David Montgomery's role is. And while that may be true for the most part, it doesn't mean that Jahmyr Gibbs can't do so. He looked really good rushing between the tackles last night, and most of his big games actually came on rushes between the tackles. He is a player that has a lot of power, he has a lot of patience, he has a lot of contact balance, and he is very difficult to bring down in the open field or in one-on-one situations. And of course, we know his receiving ability, right? Jahmyr Gibbs is a player that came out as an elite receiving back, probably the best, if not the second best receiving back in the 2023 NFL draft. Him and Bijan Robinson were very close, and they've both had great careers so far as receiving backs out of the backfield. But Jahmyr Gibbs has shown the ability to line up in the slot. He's shown the ability to line up on the boundary, to run slants and catch the ball, to run quick outs and catch the ball, to be a great screen pass wide receiver. He is a guy that basically, if you get the ball in his hands, whether it be through the air, on the ground, from a handoff, from a pass, Jahmyr Gibbs is going to make positive things happen. And when Jahmyr Gibbs gets the ball, the Detroit Lions tend to win the football game. Jahmyr Gibbs is a player that is a big play, lightning in a bottle waiting to happen. Throughout his entire NFL career, he has never had a game where he has had under 4 yards per touch. And that game where he had 4 yards a touch was when he had just 14 touches, his third lowest of his career, versus the Seattle Seahawks in the second game of the season, where Jahmyr Gibbs saw just 7 carries for 17 yards, but he did have 7 receptions for 40 yards. Jahmyr Gibbs averaged 4 yards in that game, and that was the worst game of his NFL career. In week 1, Jahmyr Gibbs had 60 scrimmage yards. In week 2, he had 56 scrimmage yards. In week 3, he had 82. In week 4, he had 4.3. In week 4, he had 51 total scrimmage yards, being the worst of his career, while David Montgomery saw a career-high 32 carries and 3 touchdowns. And then after the injury, he saw 126 scrimmage yards and 189 scrimmage yards. Jahmyr Gibbs has never had under 50 yards in a game as a rookie, and likely will not have under 50 yards for a very long time, as long as he is healthy. He is a dynamic playmaker for the Detroit Lions and very much turned into the best player, arguably, on the Detroit Lions roster on Monday night. He is arguably the best weapon from round 1. And as of right now, after his Monday night performance and after his performances over the last 2 weeks, Jahmyr Gibbs has propelled himself back into the top 5 odds for Offensive Rookie of the Year. Now, will Jahmyr Gibbs win this? Obviously, it is very hard to say. There are a lot of great offensive rookies. Sam Laporte is vying for that, as is obviously Bijan Robinson. I think that it's pretty likely going to be to CJ Stroud after he just broke rookie records last weekend as a quarterback for the Texans. But Jahmyr Gibbs has finally arrived in the NFL. He has shown everything you want to see in a franchise running back, and arguably even more at this point than what you would expect out of a franchise running back. He is quick, he has long speed, he has patience, he has power, he has receiving ability. There really isn't a weakness to the Jahmyr Gibbs experience other than maybe his pass blocking ability. You haven't really seen him had to stay in there and protect his quarterback very well. There wasn't really a whole lot of reps where Jahmyr Gibbs was asked to do so, because keeping that guy in the backfield is arguably a waste of his talent. So the Detroit Lions decided to send Jahmyr out on as many routes as possible, get the ball in his hands as much as possible. And as you saw on Monday night, it worked to a T. So with all that being said, that is all for you guys today. Just a quick update, quick look in on the Detroit Lions' newest superstar on offense. Jahmyr Gibbs is a big play waiting to happen. Jahmyr Gibbs is very much worthy of the 12th overall pick and will be a nice addition to the Detroit Lions offense for many years to come. So with all that being said, that is all for you guys today. Just wanted to give a quick update on Jahmyr Gibbs, talk about why he's so good, talk about what he's been showing on the Detroit Lions offense, and talk about why he was, yes, very much worthy of the 12th overall selection. So with all that being said, that is all for you guys today. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, and as always, go Lions.